Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Hello, my friends. How are you? I hope you're having a super day. This is Heather. This is another episode of the Cheering Back to Me podcast. This is I guess we're in May now. And today I'm super excited as always because Fridays I get to talk to awesome people. I'm talking to, make sure I say it right, Manpreet. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I tried to write it down phonetically and then I looked down and thought, wow, my handwriting is so terrible. But welcome. I'm so happy to meet you and invite you and converse with you about all the things
Happy
of the
to be
world.
here.
Yeah. So I have this curiosity that I am always interested in how people got to where they are now, because you didn't start out as a Kundalini teacher and mantra singer.
No, I sure didn't.
Right? Right. I mean, I know that I didn't start out here, so I'm like, wow. I'm always super curious. I know when you took a Kundalini class, everything changed, but what was happening before that and what took you into that?
I feel like I kind of came out of the womb, or at least to my earliest recollection, kind of with this question of like, what the fuck?
Right?
You know, like I remember feeling that at a really young age. Like, what is this place? Like, feeling like it just things weren't the way that I felt like they should be or they could be, or, you know, and so it started really young. And I think that that manifested in me through my adolescence. Um, I was a punk rocker. I was very rebellious. I was like, I had a lot of anger, I think, because the way that I felt was not reflected in my external environment really at all. And seeing certain truths and then uh, kind of being told by people around me like, oh, that's not actually happening, or kind of really questioning things and then being kind of shut down with that questioning. And so it manifested in a lot of anger for me, rebellious, like really deep rebellion, which I'm glad, I always kind of feel proud of my rebellious self as a teenager because I'm like, yeah, I knew something wasn't right. And that's still there to some degree. It's just the embodiment of it is different. It's matured, there's
Yeah.
wisdom, there's experience. Um, and so around the time when I was 20, about 23, um, I started to have this awakening that maybe a lot of the kind of discomfort, anxiety, depression that I was having in life was maybe dietary.
Hmm.
So I really started to look into that. I had been on and off antidepressants since I was like 14 years old.
Whoa.
And something in me knew that wasn't my path. I had, people telling me, therapists and different people saying, "Oh, well, you probably have to take them for the rest of your life." I wasn't buying that for myself. I didn't believe that. I was like, "There's no way." Like, I didn't come into this world feeling this way. I remember feeling happy as a
Right.
child. So I really started my search then because I didn't want to take antidepressants anymore. But it wasn't just like, oh, you just stop. It's like this weaning process, and that weaning process is really difficult for me, and I never seem to be successful. Um, and so I started looking into diet, and I was like, okay, no, like I got really determined, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna change this naturally. I'm gonna change this holistically. And so I started looking into diet. I had been a vegan, since I was like 16 or something, and vegetarian since I was like 14. But I wasn't healthy. I
Right.
just I just ate whatever tasted good. And so I got really into like, okay, I'm gonna actually try to balance this nutritionally. And so I got into fasting and juice fasting and supplements and, food as medicine. And I really went deep into studying that. And it really helped. It really, really helped. Um, and then, I was living in LA at the time, and I lived near a yoga studio called Golden Bridge Yoga. And, you know, I used to walk by there really regularly, and there was always kind of this draw, like, like, I feel like
What's
I'm
going on
curious
in
about this
there?
place. Yeah. Um, and so eventually I ended up in there taking my first yoga class, and I'd never taken a yoga class before. Um, and I thought yoga was for hippies. I was a rock and roller. I was like, oh, that's hippie stuff. Um, anyway, so I got over that, and I took a class, and it was Kundalini Yoga, and that was a Kundalini Yoga studio, and actually one of the kind of top Kundalini yoga studios in LA, one of two at the time. There was only two in LA at the time.
Really?
Yeah. And that one was Gurmukh's studio. And
Wow.
I did that class, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this is the answer for me. Like, this is the other thing that it's like was the other piece of the puzzle. And that was the beginning of my journey. And it wasn't like I was, full on perfect yogi right away. It was a journey of a lot of learning to trust the practice and trust the culture and trust really myself. Um, and eventually, 6 years later, I'm taking the teacher training and really wanting to go deeper into my understanding of the teachings and the practice. Um, and yeah, that's, pretty much my journey. Oh, and the other thing I should mention is, within the first better part of a year of just going to classes, I didn't have a personal practice. I was able to just throw my antidepressants in the trash. I didn't even
Nice.
have to wean, which is,
Right.
now even looking back, I'm like, wow, that's like pretty huge.
That is pretty
But
huge.
and I had no side effects, no withdrawal
Yeah.
symptoms. I'm not
Because they do make
recommending
a,
that,
no,
you know, but
don't do it.
no, I'm not saying that that's how it's going to work for everybody, but that is in fact how it worked out for me. And really, to me, it's just a testament of the power the practice has to balance the mind, body, and spirit.
Right. And I mean, I, when I first started practicing yoga, I started practicing Ashtanga
Mhm.
because I was corporate, and everybody does Ashtanga because it's like
It's
it's like
hardcore,
super, it is hardcore.
very
And I
difficult.
have the injuries still to prove it.
Oh, wow.
24 years later, I still have chronic things. But I did practice Kundalini for a year with a teacher before she moved away. And it's interesting that, you walked in, you're like, this is it. And I'm interested in what was it about that particular practice that kind of just immediately you knew?
Um, it was the way that I felt afterwards. It wasn't particularly enjoyable. You know, the actual yoga, I mean, it was really hard for me, even at the age of, 25, 26. Well, I can't say it was particularly easy. And I even had a gymnastics background, and, it was hard for me.
Wow.
And when I got up from the Shavasana at the end, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I was probably the most relaxed I'd ever been in my life that I could recall at that point in time.
Right.
And that's really what it was. It was the result from having that experience. It wasn't the yoga itself.
No. People have asked me for a long time, like, what kind of yoga should I do? I said, the kind that you'll keep doing.
Mhm.
Right?
That's perfect
Be-
advice.
yeah. I said, find and people want, I don't know, I used to work out like, well, I still, I guess, kind of work out, but I had this personal trainer when I was in corporate who he said, oh, yoga, oh, that's just, for fluffy people. So I had him do a sun salutation. He's like, with the breath control. And
Mhm.
he's like, okay, that's hard. So we're not saying yoga is easy, because you wouldn't do it if it was easy. I mean,
We wouldn't
really.
need it if it was easy.
Yeah. Yeah. True. So true, right?
I had this
Um,
conversation with someone just last night, it's like we wouldn't, if our bodies were so balanced that when we did this yoga, that it was like easy, that would be a real testament to like, oh, we're okay. Like we already are in this perfect state of balance.
right.
The yoga
And
shows you how all of your imbalances so
right.
you can address them, really.
And it's only one of the limbs. I mean, in North
Yeah.
America, it's become the one that we concentrate on.
Mhm.
But it's only one of the aspects to balance you out. I mean, you even spoke to it like, your intake, your diet, not only of physical food, but your diet of life, the life that you allow into your sphere, your diet of consumption of all these things impact you. And being intentional about them can make such a difference in your life. And are you still vegan? I'm just
No,
curious.
I'm vegetarian now. I've adopted the yogic diet, which is, vegetarian, no eggs.
Right.
Uh, but the vegan diet, I always say I'm vegan centric. So I mostly try to adhere to a vegan diet, and then I incorporate some dairy here and there. But it's mostly because at this point, it's because of the way that I feel when
Right.
I eat that way. At the time, I went vegan very young, and I was, it was very much for animal rights purposes. I was really into advocating for the animals, and I still am, of course. But
Hmm.
it's just, it's shifted into, uh, a deeper wisdom, I would say.
Well,
And that
if you
is
can listen,
being
yeah, if you
conscious.
can feel what it feels like when you eat something,
Mhm.
that's such a good guide.
Yeah, and I think
But most people have disconnected from that.
definitely. And I think
Right.
that's one thing too about the practice of Kundalini yoga and meditation that it helps to sensitize you more deeply to yourself. So you can have this, connection to your body when I am consuming anything, like you said, whether it be food, media, the way I spend my money, whatever it is, that I am aware of the vibrational quality of it. So, how do I feel when I spend time with a certain person? How do I feel when I'm watching a certain movie? And allowing ourselves to trust those feelings, and ultimately, those become our navigational tools. So,
Right.
I notice if something kind of influences my energy and I start to feel tired, then I know,
Right.
okay, my body, my mind, my spirit's like, no, I'm not, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
And allowing it to be that simple. And
Right.
that took me a long time to cultivate, I will say. Now I'd say I'm pretty good at honoring those signals. And even furthermore, knowing when I can override them if I have to rally for some reason, you know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but, that when I was younger, I feel like, when I spoke about seeing beyond certain things and seeing the truth of certain things, I was very much taught to ignore those signals, like most of us are. Like, oh no,
Yes.
ignore your intuition. Like that that sets you apart from the crowd and what the group think is. And
Well, and it's
we're
interesting
taught.
what they do to children, right? I mean, you're told things like always tell the truth and do this way and do this way, but that they don't demonstrate that. So the kids are going, so
Yeah.
was
So
that how does this work
what
exactly?
exactly is my truth? So
Yeah,
just tell
exactly.
me what my truth is, and
Yeah.
then I'll say that, you know. And it's an indoctrination of sorts, of
Yeah.
like, okay, this is okay to say, this is okay to express, this is not. And it's like, I think in any society we have to learn kind of how to fit in a way. Um, but I
We're kind
love
of
how, like,
hardwired for that, right?
yeah, we are a communal species. We need each other, and we need acceptance for our it actually, there's studies about this, that feeling a form of acceptance by a group actually helps us to thrive emotionally, physically, spiritually. So we
Hmm.
do need that. Um, but I think what we're starting to see is we're on this kind of pivoting right now of, okay, what exactly does that look like? And I think it's beautiful that there's a lot more conversation about authenticity and speaking one's truth, and not only having the freedom to do that, but on the side of the person who's receiving that truth, like, we're learning how to listen more deeply,
Right.
learning how to not personalize other people's experiences.
That's huge right there.
And just say,
Like,
whoa, this person's having an experience, and I'm just going to respectfully hear them out.
right? Don't make it about you because it's not.
Yeah. But it's like, simultaneously, we're all in it together.
Yes.
So finding our way as tribal beings, but also allowing people to have the individual experience. It's a
Right.
wild time to be alive.
It's pretty wild. It is pretty wild, I have to say. The shifting that's been going on over the last 3, 4 years have been pretty huge. And I'm kind of enjoying it actually. I mean, I know not everything that happened in the last 3, 4 years has been great for everybody, but it's when you don't really attach to any of it, you're just like, wow, that's so
Hmm.
cool.
It is, and I think that it's such an important kind of skill to cultivate within oneself, is like, how do I remain sensitive, remain in my humanity, and not necessarily uh, participate in the chaos?
Right,
It's like, can I watch the movie but not be an actor in it? And if I am an actor, can I create something that's beneficial for the outcome of this play?
right,
And that's been a really interesting space to navigate. And really, that's what, for me, is kind of the guiding light, is, okay, if I'm participating in this drama, I want to contribute something of value here, something
right,
useful for people. Um, and I think that, this is my kind of mission, if you will, as a teacher, is to, by the grace of God, by the grace of the divine, to inspire people to do the same. It's really easy to focus on the tragedy of what's going on in the world. There's no denying it. And if you feel affected by the things that you see going on this planet, just thank God you're human. You're
right.
human, you can feel. Um, but it's kind of the trial of the times to not allow ourselves to get swept up in the tragedy of it.
Well, and it's
Um,
so much larger than it ever has been because I mean, we're all so interconnected now globally that we haven't been before. So when we've had things like this before, you might not even hear about it for 6 months. And, it
yeah.
wasn't a constant uh, barrage of information, but you just reminded me. And this is interesting when people first start practicing, a lot of things start changing when you have regular practice, right? And it reminded me when I was practicing Kundalini regularly, I was still in the corporate world, And I have this clear memory. I came down the stairs and into the living room, and my husband at the time was watching the news or it was something, maybe it was a movie. And the violence of it was just too much for me. I had just walked into the room and I went, and I didn't know what to do with it at the time. And where I'm going with this is when you first start practicing and stuff like this happens, not to scare anyone, like I didn't, die from it or anything. It was just an awareness of, wow, that really upsets me. And all I did was walk in the room. Having the community, the right community and the right teacher or guide or someone to help you through it as you navigate it, who just like, oh yeah, I gotcha. I know what's going on, right? Like that's so important.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, somebody who kind of holds a truth that you can actually receive. And this is, people ask me all the time, like, what is it, how do I know who my teacher is? Because there's a lot of talk about spiritual teacher. People, they want a spiritual teacher or they're seeking one. And for me, it's simple. A teacher is someone who you can receive from. They're speaking a truth that you really resonate with, that you can actually receive it and take it in, and it gets, you know, uh, it it your consciousness can hold it. So, for instance, there's things that, um, and we might have some teachers who are like more our kind of primary teacher, who we really, really trust them. That's kind of like our main resource of truth. And so those people, for me, uh, they there's things that they've said that, 15 years later, I'm like, I still remember it. And it still
Right.
vibrates for me. And it's still like resounding through my consciousness after all this time. So
Yes.
that means something to me.
Yeah.
And, and then we have teachers we encounter people maybe at the grocery store or just by chance, right? Um, that have a message for us that, resounds for us through that day. And so really it's anyone you can receive from. And I think that, rather than kind of over analyzing it, I mean, because in my world, I'm around people who are like, oh, my teacher, who's my teacher? Ah, like people, and I'm like, just chill. But just who can you receive from? Who do you trust?
Right.
What is that information like vibrate through you? And you're like, oh, I can receive this and actually hold it.
Yeah.
You know, it can be
Sometimes you get
that
the
simple,
teachers
my
who are too
friend.
far. It's like,
Yeah, you just
sometimes
don't
it's like,
resonate. You're like, I don't get it. And you just move
yeah,
on. I'm like,
I'm
that's,
not there yet.
there's people, they're huge teachers that are like worldly, celebrated like on a global scale. And I'll watch, some lectures by them and I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. And I just move on. It's like, to me, it's just, we each have our own kind of vibrational frequency and we have to, you know, be able to increase our sensitivity to the point where we recognize, oh, this I resonate with.
This
That's
is for
it.
me. This is not for me.
Simple. Yeah,
Right.
or yeah, I don't, this is not for me. Next.
And you're
And this is,
also, sorry,
oh,
you also do mantra singing,
yeah,
which I
yeah.
love. I love mantra singing.
Well, and the mantra is great because it's another limb, if you will, of
Hmm.
how to connect on the more subtle uh, uh, realm of vibration. Because the mantra is just the vibrational sound, and it's a certain pattern that we create. And really, people always say, "Oh, what does it mean? What does the mantra mean?" And it doesn't actually matter what it means, and I'll tell you why. Because it's the pattern that we create using the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth. This creates a certain pattern that then vibrates, into the pineal and the pituitary gland. So essentially, the people who wrote this poetry, which is really what it is, this devotional poetry, they were channeling something. And, you know, it, that benefits us hundreds, if not thousands of years later.
Right.
And I say this through my own personal experience of chanting a lot of mantra. It changes the way that you feel and it changes the way that you think. And it changes our relationship to vibration. So we can tune more deeply into the subtleties of things. Um, and ultimately, when we feel good, because chanting it makes you feel good, we make different decisions. We make different choices when we feel good than when we
Right.
feel, depressed or anxious or, chaotic.
And
That's
like you
just a
said, we
fact.
didn't come into the world feeling depressed and chaotic and anxious.
Mm.
We came in, I mean, sure, you yelled when the doctor slapped your butt, but
Yeah.
you were like, "Hey, Dad, hey, buddy, like, come on, I just got here." So, but we came into the world as happy, joyous beings, and something happened, and trying to
Hmm.
go back to that place um, is recognizing. I was listening to Bashar the other day, actually. He's like,
Hmm.
if you're carrying lots of baggage and it's really heavy, it's not your baggage. Put it down because your bags don't weigh anything. So if people don't know who Bashar is, just go Google him.
He's an interesting character for
He's a
sure.
very interesting character. But I love mantra because like you said, sound is vibration. And I watched so much stuff on how different sounds on a plate of sand create patterns. And
Mhm.
people wonder sometimes where the mala shapes come from, or um,
Oh, the mandalas.
the mandalas. There it is. I was like, my mind was gone. And some vibrations create those shapes in the sand. It's like, it's just sound. No, it's not just sound. Sound is a creation. We create things with sound in our voice. And if you know how to use those vibrations, it's just, like you said, changes everything. It makes you feel good. And who doesn't
Yeah.
want to feel good? Right?
Yeah. And,
Now,
and
do you
it is
do
interesting.
mantra
Okay.
classes? Do you
I
do
do.
mantra classes?
I have a monthly club. That's the gimmick.
Mon-
It's called the
Marketing.
Mantra Club. Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. It's I'm, if it's a gimmick, it's a gimmick. You might as well admit it, right? So
Yeah.
I call it the Mantra Club. And basically, yeah, that's what we do. I pick a mantra that we work on for the whole month, and we meet on Sundays for an hour. We go over the pronunciation. We go over the key benefits of the mantra, and then we'll recite it for 31 minutes. And it's nice, it's a way to kind of. I feel like things are easier as a group when it comes
You don't
to
feel so weird.
accountability, yeah, and showing up. And even though it's virtual, it's all online, um, but it's an accountability. It's just another way to kind of set your clock and be like, oh, okay, I have this thing. This is when I do the mantra. Obviously, you're not limited to that, but um, and it's really beautiful because it allows us to go deeper into the experience together. And we have a group chat and people share kind of their experience with whatever the current mantra is, and how they feel it benefiting their lives, or if they have questions and things like that. And it's really become such a sweet ritual. And this is our third year of doing this on Sundays. And it my big thing is just creating offerings that allow people to have a different experience. The slogan for the Mantra Club is "We're into repetition," and that's kind of like Kundalini Yoga in a nutshell. It's really repetitive, but what we're doing is we're creating new neural pathways, establishing positive neural pathways. Um, and You were talking about, I can't remember what it's called right now. Somatics, that's what it's called, with
Oh, right.
where you create it's like the mandalas in the water or the sand using frequency. And, it's interesting because uh, that's essentially what you're doing to your aura when you chant mantra. It's
Right.
creating this mandala in the aura that's a structure that supports not only your physical body, but it's supporting your psyche. So when we keep the repetition going, we're crystallizing the aura into a certain pattern, which is more beneficial for us.
Right.
We wouldn't do it if we didn't think it was beneficial. This practice is entirely experience based. The only reason why I am here sitting before you on this podcast is because I've had an experience that altered my life in a positive way and sustainably. If I didn't have an experience, I wouldn't be here. I would,
Right. You would
you
have been
know,
doing something else. You
I
had
would,
been a
I
punk
would be,
rocker.
I would have sought out something that worked for me. And so
Right.
this is just one tradition uh, that I have gone really deep into because it works. And if it doesn't work for you, we always say, like, if you don't have an experience, you can have your money back. Because we know people have an experience if they do it. It's if you do the yoga,
Right.
you'll have an experience of some kind. It doesn't mean that maybe it's your life path or, that it's the one that you're going to continue forever. But we know that if you do the practice, you'll have some kind of experience.
Well, and anything that we do because of the way we're built without repetition, you don't necessarily get the full benefit of it. Right. So it's
Sure.
like you have to breathe regularly, you have to eat regularly, you have to sleep regularly. It's all repetition, and habits are built by repetition.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a habit that you don't like, it's because you kept repeating it over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that one of the ways you can't really get, like they say, get rid of a habit, just replace it with a new one.
Yeah.
That's more healthy,
Yeah.
right?
And they
That's the
say,
easiest way to do it.
and neuroscience it's like, the neuroplasticity is created through repetition.
Hmm.
So, and what you focus on. So, I love that you said, like, our breath is a pattern. We have inherent fundamental patterns as human beings. Our heartbeat is a pattern. Our breath is a pattern. And actually, the beauty of Kundalini Yoga meditation is that those practices, the postures, the repetition, actually support the patterns that already exist in the human. So they can
Right.
function at high capacity and in their most natural functional state, because of the inundation of information we have right now has actually affected our breath pattern and our inherent human natural functions. And so basically all the practice of Kundalini yoga and meditation does is it helps to reinforce your natural state of being. It's, people might start the practice and they're like, oh, it's magic. And, I mean, I get it, but it's really just supporting your natural functions. So
Right.
you can navigate the time and space of the information age and actually digest the things that you encounter on a daily basis, the information that's in your face. It's like, 100 years ago, what are we consuming? Like maybe 100 years ago, we were consuming like 10% of the information that we consume now.
Right.
I mean, so
Maybe
maybe
1%.
if that, yeah.
Right.
So we actually need tools to help us
Right.
to stay in our humanity, because things have moved so much in the technology realm that we're losing touch with our very humanity, our core soul, our core self. Our lives have become so externalized. And, it's no wonder why people struggle with depression and anxiety and just this feeling of despondency or, detachment from reality. Because there's not a lot of inward experience anymore.
All you have to do is I sat on the bus the other day. There was a row of people. I just looked over them, and all of them had a phone, and they were all looking down and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I thought, look out the window. The sun is out. Like,
Right.
come
Yeah,
out of the phone. Come out of the phone.
it's so true.
I've made it a standard practice now to leave my phone in my pocket or my purse unless I need it, and not use it as a distraction
Hmm.
for downtime. And the other thing is, I know you also have 40 days of meditation, and
Yeah,
people might get scared. Oh my God,
I
40
know.
days in a row.
It's funny because to me, I'm like, "Well, it's like, it's like half an hour in the morning Pacific time, and there's replays too. You can watch the recording, but it's really, you know, the reason I created it, the reason I created this offering, which, 40-day meditation is in the Kundalini yoga tradition is considered like the minimum amount of practice to experience the specific benefits of a meditation. So we have thousands of meditations in the Kundalini yoga tradition.
I
So
did
I
the
choose one.
Satanama for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I choose one, and we each morning we gather on live stream, and we do that meditation for 11 minutes. I might share some inspiration or something, but it's really, I think the hardest part for people is showing up and committing and following through on their commitments. I think that's
Yeah.
definitely the hardest part, especially as, you start to feel the beginning is always kind of like, it's common that you feel, really kind of good during the beginning. And then as, the pattern starts to kind of crystallize a little bit more deeply, about halfway through, you're like, oh my God, like I can't do it anymore. It's like a common, people start being like, the basically the old kind of default pattern starts being like, but wait, what about me? Like I'm still here. I need to be, you know, this has always worked for you. You're
Yeah.
comfortable here,
Stop it. You're killing me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm dying. And so people kind of, they start to get a little squirrely. But the beauty of it is by the end, it's the people who really can follow through. There's always such a beautiful experience of connectedness with each other and with self. And the reason why I wanted to do this offering in the beginning was, it's like it was, at the height of the pandemic, and I was like, I need this community. I want to relate to people who want to work on themselves.
Right.
And so I started offering this, and then, the secondary reason was really I wanted to create a space for people to have an experience of their own commitment and transformation ultimately. And I mean, it's amazing to hear the experiences that some people have. And, there's people who have been participating since the beginning, since, I started in 2020, and they participate in every single one. And it's like, you know, they've really been able to connect to the benefits that it's created in their lives in so many ways. And um, it's really, you can do anything once and feel good afterwards. But if you decide, oh, I want to create a habit of doing that every day, it totally transforms your life. Like this is where we actually transform as human beings, and we can really deeply heal because we are creating a new pattern, which is more enjoyable, more valuable than whatever was going on before.
Right.
So this 40-day practice is really the kind of introduction to that experience.
And people think that it seems long, but it's
Oh, it's
not.
nothing.
It's nothing.
It's really
Um,
nothing.
it's funny. I use Insight Timer to
Yeah.
just as a timer for my meditations, and I was just messing around the other day and I looked at it and it's told me how many hours I had meditated. So I did a calculation. I'm like, I have meditated for 40 days and 40 nights. It's like, that's a lot of hours. Right. So, and that's just the ones I've used on the Insight Timer. But so I mean, I love yoga, obviously, because I still teach it and practice it after like 24 years of doing things. And I still love the way that these practices make me feel in a way that's not the same as the running high or the gym high or any of those other things that people will do. I used to say people come to yoga to get the yoga butt and then they stay because I would trick them into doing meditation. I say, we meditate, but I don't tell them that's what we're doing. So, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love the way you said, we're consuming so much more now than we used to. And I think about a person who's like standing on one of those wobble boards and this is their life. And if you like things are hitting you from the side and if you don't have a way to wobble yourself back into the center, then you're just going to be always at the mercy of all these things coming at you. So I find all of these practices are a way to like keep finding your center point. You're never going to stay there exactly. It's like trees who wave in the wind, but you'll always come back to your center. That's beautiful.
True.
Whoa, that was a really deep thought right there.
Hey, that's why we're here, isn't it?
Yeah, we're here for deep thoughts.
It's true.
Talking to you is like so awesome. I could talk to you all the time. I feel like I'm going to be in some of your classes sometime soon. I'm just saying.
Great.
Yeah, it would be so good. But before we go, because I always know that my guests have so much to bring and so much wisdom, I always give my guests the last word. And do you have final words of wisdom for the peeps out in podcast land?
Wow. I think that I can just share from my own personal theme lately, which is the importance of connecting to your own soul. And whatever it takes for a person to find that space again and to have a consistent experience of it. Because ultimately, when we're guided by our soul and our soul is running the show, we might experience pain and we might experience challenge, but we won't suffer because the soul is always guiding us where we need to go, what we need to learn, how we need to heal, how we need to evolve, how we need to wake up. And so, I've found that, this tradition of Kundalini Yoga has helped me to establish that link to my soul that is always, it's always there. I always feel it, sometimes more than others, but we're all doing our best here.
Yeah.
But this is the tradition that has helped me to establish that link consistently. And whatever you find for yourself that helps you to establish that link consistently, follow that. Because again, a lot of we're in a time where we're watching a really, really dramatic movie, very, very dramatic. And the link to our soul is the one thing that will help us to navigate the time and space in a way that is ultimately meaningful.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love chatting with you. Oh my gosh.
I feel like we could talk for hours.
I know, we so could. That's okay. We'll just do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
To be continued, my friends. So, friends in podcast land, take those words of wisdom and tuck them in your pocket and keep coming back to them and send them to your friends because they need to hear it too. Take care. Have an amazing day.
Bye-bye.
Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help, and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.